Hello, my friends, and welcome to another episode of Ignore the Bird, Follow the River, the podcast where all we do is talk about Willow. One of my favorite movies, and the favorite movie of a handful of my friends here to talk with us today. Why don't you introduce yourselves?
Well, I'm Adam, and as you know, I'm one of the normal folks around here with Ignore the Bird, Follow the River, and we are joined by two special guests. We have Alex and Kristina, my brother and sister-in-law.
All right. Well, Kristina, born and raised in Chicago, never saw Willow until 3 weeks ago, and then again last night because I forgot everything. And yeah, super stoked to be here.
Woohoo!
Woo!
We're glad to have you.
Thanks.
And Alex?
Alex?
Yeah, I'm Alex. I'm Adam's brother and Samantha's brother-in-law. And so I also live in Chicago. We're married, so that kind of helps. Yeah, I guess that's it.
And we're super happy to have you guys here. Family is one of those really important bonds for me, and this movie, I feel like, kind of works like that for the most of us here tonight. Adam has talked extensively about his connection to Willow and how deep that goes. I have as well. And Alex, it sounds like that is a common denominator here.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't remember a time where I hadn't seen the movie Willow. So growing up with Adam, it was kind of hard not to see it. So but on the other hand, it's been so long since I've seen it. It's I think like 15 years or so. So there's a few things that I just didn't necessarily remember about it, like just some kind of funny little things that just kind of came flooding back when we watched it. So it's definitely a very nostalgic sort of movie for me.
Beautiful. And in fact, that's what we're going to be talking about a lot today, is this connection to Willow and some new takes on it. We've talked a lot about it. We've been doing this almost a year now, Brownies and Bobkins. And now we're going to be talking to some people who, in this case, in case of Kristina, have never seen it up until a few weeks ago. So I'm really excited. This is actually a larger part, or a small part of a much larger series we're doing leading up to the release of the show. We're going to be interviewing a lot of people who've never seen Willow or haven't seen it in a really long time, getting their fresh takes on it, and talking about the sequel series, as well as getting announcements out of the way at the top of the program here. I just want to say we are proud to announce our new Mad Mardigan Can You Ride t-shirts. This is by the art is by me, the text and composition that the shirt is put together with is by Sam, and it is going to be put out through Streamlabs. You can pick that up now. This is going to be a limited run for these shirts, so get them while you can. We're only doing 100 of them, and we're super excited to get these on the street, on the bodies, and have you folks pushing our fresh Mad Mardigan merch. Come on. Yes. I'm super stoked about this episode and the series as well. Let's start off with we've got a little bit of the history. Never seen it and saw it a long time ago. Hadn't seen it in 15 years. Can I get your first impression? Like kind of just like after seeing it. Like what were some of the things that you noticed? What were some of the things you liked?
Well, let's see. I think going into it, obviously, as an adult now, and having, I guess, watched so many films recently where, you know, the effects are a lot more advanced and stuff like that, kind of went into it with the expectation of no judgment. And I think that was one of the things that I was most impressed by, was how well the special effects were done for this movie, considering how long ago it was made.
Yeah, 1988. It's been a long time since those effects first were produced, and some of them, like the last transformation of Finn Rizal, when she turns back into a human, that was the first time that had been done in that way, or ever. The morphing technique was developed during the post-production.
Yeah, I watched there's a series about ILM on Disney Plus just recently, like a docuseries, and they talked about that exact thing. And there was this lady who like she just like painting models and stuff, and then she got a job at ILM, and then she was the person who did it. Like she just figured out how to do it. She made these models that were like it was like half ostrich or whatever, and then half like lion and stuff, and it just cool. It was really interesting watching them talk about how they did it.
Yeah. And Alex, what was like a big first impression on your rewatch in 15 years?
Yeah. So actually, having just watched that series about ILM, I was looking for those specific things, like that specific transformation, to see how it looked. In light of having seen how they did it. And it really holds up really well. The one thing I did notice that I'd never noticed before, probably because I had no idea how they did it, was the fact that they definitely used matte paintings for a lot of things. But it's basically seamless. On occasion, like every once in a while, because we watched the movie on like a giant high def television. You could kind of see some stuff, like you sort of know, like, because, and growing up, we watched it on a VHS tape on like a terrible old television. So like it was like there was nothing. You couldn't tell that it wasn't real. Like,
yeah, it's a beautiful thing. I for a long time I had a noise band, and we trucked around a VHS tape player and a little crappy TV with us pretty much everywhere we went, because that's just such an aesthetic that, like, no matter what you're watching, it just kind of brings you back to this nostalgic kind of period if you grew up in it, you know. That old VHS on a grainy TV, everything looks real, you know.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I think in fact we watched it so much that at one point we had to get a new copy of the cassette or whatever, because
Oh, wow.
I think it broke. I think the cassette actually broke.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful thing. As far as like the beginnings of the movie, did you feel like that was a fun way to introduce these characters? Like, I was talking about it last week, and the whole beginning sequence with the baby being born and all that, it's such a big impression that it kind of starts you off with.
Yeah, no, I would totally agree. I mean, I'm the type of person where if a movie starts off too slow, you've already lost my attention and I'm on to something else. I was very pleased with how the movie started. It definitely kept my attention in the beginning for sure.
Yeah, I actually totally forgot that happened at the very beginning. Like, I for some reason thought that it just started with with their like just in the village and him finding the baby. I totally forgot about the whole sequence.
Yeah, it's intense.
But then actually what's funny is then just after when we started watching it, I did remember the part where like the dogs go after the woman who, like, the midwife who like took her. And it's like, it's super vicious.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
It's pretty intense. Like, they're just like ripping her apart. Like, she totally sacrificed herself for this.
Into the river you go, child.
Yeah.
Good luck. Godspeed.
Here you go, fantasy Moses.
Yeah.
An unspoken hero, really. Like, I mean, doesn't get the credit she deserves. That midwife, you know, sacrificed herself for Allura before it was ever in Willow's hands, you know. All like and like in the meta examination of it, just kind of like a tool, you know, an object, you know, kind of being used to sacrifice itself narratively for the excellent intro that we get, you know. And it's sad, but I think that character is incredible, just because, you know, you don't get a lot of loving tributes. I think that's an important thing to do.
Yeah, sure.
And then,
like you said, without that, there's no, the rest is, it's just over.
Yeah, it's just over.
Exactly. Yeah, I mean, if she hadn't sent off Allura exactly when she did, you know, Allura wouldn't have made it any further. Absolutely. It's so well balanced, I feel like, with the the next few scenes where we're in the Nelwyn village, and it feels so cottagecore, you know. I love those scenes, and I love how it kind of showcases Willow's kind of like character without telling us, you know, everything we need to know in expository kind of dialogue. It just kind of lets us know Willow's a farmer, he's a family man, you know, humble beginnings.
Yeah.
Burgle Cut's a
100%.
giant douche.
Yeah.
Absolutely. No Burgle Cut.
He's the worst.
Yeah, I've often voiced my severe disdain for Burgle Cut during the course of this program.
So actually, one last thing, like with the Nelwyn in the village.
Oh yeah, please.
I didn't realize. I forget I think his name's Tony Cox. I think I looked it up. The one warrior guy.
Right.
I remember watching like Bad Santa and
Yeah.
and I'm like, I know that guy from somewhere, and I realized where just then.
Yep.
Yeah, Tony Cox has had a solid career.
Yeah.
After Willow, you know, and one of the few Little People actors that has really like kind of gotten to do a lot of different kind of character work. Really interesting career, fascinating stuff. And in fact, a lot of those Little People actors had met on the set of
Return of the Jedi.
Thank you.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Jedi. Yeah, which is actually how Warwick got the job. Anything for you, Kristina, that was like really jumped out about the Nelwyn village for you?
I mean, I fully recognize this is probably a really superficial response, but I fell in love with Willow's children.
Oh no!
They stole my heart, and his wife as well. I was in love with that whole family.
Same.
You know, honestly, yeah, I don't think that's superficial at all. Like, that's part of what wins people over with Willow is the heart of it, you know?
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's a good point. Hey, thanks, Adam.
You're welcome.
Yeah, and the whole like the trick with the magic trick with the pig.
Oh yeah.
Oh
the
gosh,
illusion.
Yes.
Little foreshadowing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. They paint such a beautiful like kind of pastoral image with that sequence of scenes in the Nelwyn village, which kind of amplifies when it gets raided by the devil dogs and or death dogs, and kind of really heightens the mood because you know you already care about these people. Like, you've been here 5 minutes.
It's so early, it's so early in the movie too, and I'm just like, yeah, go fam.
Yeah. And it kind of instigates the whole adventure, really. Like, you know, we of course see Willow not do so well in his examination from the High Aldwin to make an apprentice, but ultimately for the better.
Give me some water or you die. Give me some water, you measly little...
First impressions on Mad Mardigan.
I mean, the teeth.
Exactly. That's exactly like, oh God, look at those teeth.
And then later on, I'm just like, what happened? They're clean now.
Yeah, totally. It's funny.
Yeah. But no, I actually was really surprised. I've never really seen any of Val Kilmer's early work. I've watched recently the documentary that they did on him, and so to just watch him young and in that type of role, I was surprised. I was actually really impressed by him. I thought he played that character pretty well. Yeah,
that scene. That was one of the things I didn't remember happened or how it happened, but I knew they kind of like separate, like Willow and Alora separated from the rest of the company, but I didn't remember how. And then, so obviously that's how, but the one other thing from that is when the army comes by, or when the rider comes by at the very beginning, and he's like, it's the first time you hear someone say, "Out of the way, Peck."
Yeah.
And I remember Adam would, like, when I was actually a little kid, he would say that. Like, I was in the way. He'd be like, out of the way, Peck. So that was kind of a
That's so funny.
fun thing. Because we used to say that. He used to say that all the time.
Right, and it's like it establishes really clearly that Willow isn't given the same kind of. He's not human, to these Daikini people. He's that's a slur, that they're using against him, but it does establish fairly clearly the kind of world that Willow is up against here. I mean, he's left his village, his community where he is safe, where he's comfortable, but out in the big world, he's not even a person.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think those scenes are great at establishing like how Mad Mardigan kind of sets up his relationship with Willow. He's taking advantage of him.
Yeah.
For sure.
Is there
Such
any
a
milk in
Val
there?
Kilmer thing to do.
Yeah, is there any milk in there?
Yeah, absolutely. He's super manipulative towards Willow through the early stages of their meeting, and ultimately just to free himself. Let me ask you folks, do you think that like Mad Mardigan genuinely was going to care for that baby? What was his plan?
Oh man.
I think go ahead.
I was just gonna say, no way, no how. I mean,
Right?
he had Bachelor written all over him. Last thing he wants is a baby, unless he can sell it for money. That's what I was.
I totally assumed he would drop it off with some lady somewhere, or try to.
Yeah.
But lo and behold, it was taken away while he was taking a pee-pee. So.
I think they call them bio breaks now. Yeah.
Although, on the other hand, what choice does he have? I mean, he's stuck in a cage. He's either going to die, or he's going to try to do this, or he really has no choice.
Or at least make him believe he's going to do it.
Yeah, exactly. He has no choice but to either take it on for real or.
I was actually surprised at how trusting Willow was. I would have imagined as a father him to be more skeptical of handing over a child to some man that was stuck in a cage.
To a criminal.
I'm absolutely on board with you. Yes, absolutely. I mean, I think Willow is definitely skeptical, and he definitely doesn't trust Mad Mardigan, but he trusts his friend Migosh. And I think Migosh he wants to go home. He's a great friend for sticking by Willow during these times. He's a great person for wanting to be there for his friend and also keep his friend from ultimately potentially going under. He knows his farm's under threat.
Yeah.
And Migosh is just trying to do the right thing just as much as Willow is, just with a little less perspective, or a little different perspective, I guess.
Yeah. No, that's a really good point.
Yeah, that's true.
How do you think Mad Mardigan grew up?
That's a good question.
Ooh, his mom was a whore.
Okay, I like.
Yes, father. He's not sure who his father was.
Okay.
He started drinking at the age of like 10.
Okay. Yeah.
And he was at one point in time, maybe early teenage years, he was his mom's pimp.
Oh damn!
Oh, damn.
Heavy dark backstory. All right. We're talking Game of Thrones now. All right.
Right.
What
about you, Alex?
Yeah, I don't know. I remember I read one of the books a long time ago.
Oh yeah.
But I don't know
One of the sequel books.
Yeah, but I don't know if that really got into anything. So yeah, I actually don't know at all. If I had to guess, I would say, I mean, he can obviously fight, so I would imagine he was trained at a young age. So I'm guessing he was rich, or
interesting.
The son of a lord of some sort, someone with a position or a knight or something like that. But I don't actually know.
Huh.
Damn. I mean, what's interesting is my like headcanon that I had going as a kid through my, most of my life was way more in line with Kristina's, but the actual backstory is way more in line with your interpretation, Alex.
book.
I don't remember.
He is from a royal, or I don't think he was from they weren't like a royal family, but I'm pretty sure they were fairly well off, like in the caste system of their world. But yeah, he did grow up, learn how to be a knight, and all that stuff, was trained in all of these fancy types of combat. But yeah, he is the greatest swordsman that ever lived, you know.
I actually don't think I would have thought about it that way as a child. This is me thinking about it now, having read so many fantasy books, and yeah.
And I haven't read any, clearly.
I
watch more soap operas than anything else.
So, yeah, Willow entrusts Madmartigan with Elora Danon's life, and very quickly grows to regret it. The very next scene, Madmartigan's folly is essentially apparent, with Frangine screaming, "I stole the baby!" and flying an eagle over his head carrying Elora Danon. And of course, they get very soon after that entrusted with an even greater mission from Shirlindria.
Take my wand to Sorceress Finrizel. She will guide you and Elora Danon to the kingdom of Tirazleen, where a good king and queen will look after her.
Yeah, that scene, it kind of reminds me of something I don't know if you guys have, well, I know Adam's read it, but I don't know if you have the King Killer Chronicle, like the second book, when he's essentially in I forget what it's called, but it's like the Fey realm.
The Feywild.
Yeah, and it's like this, it's just a very like ethereal, sort of fantastical sort of place, with, I mean, fairies running around, or like flying around and stuff like that. But that's kind of what it made me think of.
Yeah, it does have that vibe in Shirlindria's Grove. It's got the brownies. We're introduced to them as kind of these almost Lilliputian kind of monsters.
Yeah.
And we're introduced to the fairy queen Shirlindria. Any big impressions here?
I enjoy that Kevin Pollak is in this. It's kind of like...
Was this his debut? No, I'm just kidding.
I mean, maybe. I don't know. What were his credits before that, honestly?
Yeah.
It's probably one of his first credits.
So I remember looking it up, and I know it was fairly early in his career. And it was definitely, I'm almost positive, the biggest role he had gotten at that point. But yeah, it's an amazing performance for Kevin Pollak, and I'm thrilled to say, if you haven't seen the trailers for the new stuff yet, he's in it.
Ah, great.
Yeah,
really?
he's in the newest trailer.
Spoiler, sorry, but yeah, he will be returning as Rule. But Shirlindria's Grove. So I love the effect they use on Shirlindria. And I think it is kind of it's like a precursor to Galadriel.
Oh,
in the Lord of the Rings, where we have this very kind of like, she's very composed, but she's very kind of cold. She has that talk with Frodo, and she has that moment where she kind of like gets even icier and like goes full villain for half a second, and then pulls it back and goes, okay, I have to, you know, we kind of get a similar effect with the end of Shirlindria's conversation. You know, she'd been so lovely and pleasant and warm and nurturing, and then this harsh warning at the very end of that, coming with like, you know, the force of ice breath.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. I don't remember the harshness from like having watched it previously, but I definitely caught it this time. And then the other thing about that, like, I feel like as I've gotten older, you don't necessarily see people who are in like powerful places that aren't able to be an asshole about stuff sometimes, you know? Like,
right.
You don't get there by like only handing out warm fuzzies usually. You know,
right.
It's there's usually some sort of like underlying like I don't know, sharpness that that they kind of need to get to a place where they have that sort of authority or power.
Maria Holga, I believe is the actress.
Yeah, I think Holga,
really incredible performance. I absolutely I just love how it's shot, all the fairies and how bright they are and how they, you know, just wash out against this dark background. One of my favorite sequences.
Mhm.
I could talk about it all night, but we continue forward in our adventure. We end up in the tavern, and all kinds of fun stuff happens.
You're no woman.
Now, honey.
Not a woman.
Take it easy.
Gentlemen, not a woman.
I think I remember. I believe having like early on when I was able to actually start drinking. I remember just being like beer. Like,
Definitely.
I think I remember saying that multiple times, like just randomly getting like grabbing a beer or something, you know, kind of pops into your head after having even having not seen the movie in such a long time. That moment that always just kind of stuck out to me and kind of stuck in my head.
That's beautiful. I love those references that you are the only person who gets it.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
I do it all the time, and it's not even like I intentionally do it. It's just like, you know, the hook of a 90s like R&B song is just sitting there in my brain always, forever, and constantly. I just have to sometimes I got to let it out.
Yeah.
Yep. Oh yeah.
Situationally. Like, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, what else happens in the tavern? Okay, so like when the whole like the whole ridiculous like, all right, we're gonna dress him like a guy, like a lady, so that my husband doesn't try to like murder the man, right? And then I always remembered also the moment where for some reason I'm like, why is this woman standing for this man, like just clearly making a move on a different woman? Why is this happen? Why is she okay? Obviously, this is a very different time fantasy as well. But so, and then like I remember having the image of when he like grabs her, and I'm like, oh God, this is ridiculous. Yeah, that was burned into my mind for some reason.
Oh, that line is revolting.
That
the way
line,
that he says it, wanna breed.
Oh my God, yeah.
My skin fucking crawls.
Wanna breed? Yeah.
But Lug, you know, as revolting as he is, he does come in useful fairly shortly after, when Sorsha discovers Mad Mardigan and Allura, and you know, some soldier gets to meet Lug. All of them, right on the chin, which helps them escape. Very fortunately, they are able to get out of that sticky situation and end up on a very wild chase. The sequence is really interesting to me, just because, like, I know quite a few parents, and I don't think any of them would want their children in that cart.
I mean,
sounds like a bad time for a baby.
Unless they hate them, unless they hate their children,
right?
So we kind of understand Willow's point of view, is that you should probably never drive that fast with an infant. Right. But kind of coming back to where I was coming from earlier, right after this, Mad Mardigan and Willow end up kind of like grudgingly going the same direction. Considering what we were talking about earlier, with Mad Mardigan's absolute no plan after he escapes from what would be sure slow death in a crow's cage, we find him in a brothel in a drag to avoid a whooping. He leads us on this wild chase, and his plan is to go in the direction of the lake, and then what? Like, was Mad Mardigan really just not going the same direction as them? Was he just trying to not? Was he bluffing, essentially?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm pretty skeptical when it comes to that character, but I'm also normally pretty skeptical about many things. So
sure.
So,
like, lore-wise, like, where do they say he's heading? Is there a...
The thing is Mad Mardigan had basically nothing. He had lost everything in abandoning the Galadorn army, going rogue, essentially. And that's how he ended up in the crow's cage.
Okay.
So him escaping that was basically just like he had nowhere to go. He had nothing. He had nowhere. You know, finding a lady that would sleep with him is even kind of a wild thing to think that he would have found on such short notice.
But back to your original point, your perspective it does make me think that he's obviously like longing for some type of companionship, and he can't get rid of this Willow character. So he's like, why not see where this can go? And if anything, I think it just, it's just like, it's better than being alone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
At that point, had Willow mentioned where they're going next, aside from just to the lake to get Finn Rizal? Did they mention?
I don't think so.
Yes. He had hinted that they had a short conversation by the fire before Willow blew himself up into the tree right after the chase, where he says they're talking about Allura, and Madmartigan's asking a couple questions, and Willow tells him that she's actually a princess. And Madmartigan says, and I'm the Queen of Shiva, which evidently exists.
Oh, no, Queen, or I'm the King of Kashmir.
Oh, Kashmir. I rewatched it recently, and I was like, Kashmir? Kashmir? That's not in this world.
Your point about, like, what is he actually doing there? Is it a coincidence? They're going, in light of the fact that you said he basically has lost everything, like, what else does he have? Might as well go with them, see if they ultimately are ending up somewhere where this princess is supposed to like, I mean, he's gonna get rewarded if he ushers her into her kingdom or whatever,
And he could have chose to go a different way because he doesn't have anywhere. Because they were like, "Well, we're going this way." He's like, "Oh no, that's the way I'm going."
Yeah. Yeah.
Which is a typical liar's overreaction, It's exactly that kind of like pantomime. It makes sense to me just because Madmartigan, like I said, doesn't have necessarily anywhere to go or anyone to talk to. And Willow let him free. I mean, saved his life, ultimately. And whether or not he wants to admit it to Willow yet, he is the only friend or closest thing to a friend that he's got in the world. Willow goes to Finn Rizal's island, and we meet the most powerful sorceress in the land, a small rodent.
Possum. I looked at it. It's a bush-tailed possum.
Oh, I'm sorry, marsupial. Marsupial.
Yes.
There we go.
Yeah.
At first, I was like, "Oh, is this a slow loris?" And so I had.
And she's cute too.
Oh my gosh, adorable! I didn't know possums could be so cute.
Yeah.
The fact that they could make this animal look like it's talking, like seamlessly, like it just looks so normal. You wouldn't even question it. It's like, oh, it's a talking possum, no big deal.
Unfortunately, shortly after, Willow, Madmartigan, the Brownies, Finn Rizal, and Allura Dannon are all picked up by Sorsha and her boys. And they are carried up a mountain. They're still going up the mountain. There's all the sexual tension between Madmartigan and Sorsha, but there's also this really wonderful, tender moment between him and Willow. Madmartigan takes Willow after he's fallen on the ground. He's like, obviously struggling getting up the mountain. And Madmartigan kind of, without like any kind of prompting, puts him on his shoulders, and they continue up the mountain, Madmartigan carrying both their weight. And it's the first act of service he really shows, not just to Willow, but at all. I don't know, did either of you kind of like that hit you in a specific way at all?
I'm very surface level when it comes to movies in general. So just hearing all of this, I'm like, oh, wow, I never even thought about it that way. So, now that you're pointing it out, I'm like, oh, yeah, totally.
I love it.
Yeah, actually, I feel like the earlier on, like after the brothel and before they get picked up by Sorsha and her people, there's a moment with Allura also, like when he's trying to feed her the black root and all that sort of stuff, where I feel like there's I feel like there's a selfless and tender sort of moment with her too.
Or even like the first time that he held her and he looked at her, even though I was skeptical of him at the time, you could see a little bit of tenderness from him in that first, I don't want to call it an embrace, but you know, when, you know, he was holding her for the very first time, it looked very like you could see a connection. You could see a little bit of protection.
See, you're saying surface level, but you obviously are picking up on people. Like, that's such a testament to Val Kilmer's performance as Mad Mardigan, because I totally see where you're coming from. Absolutely see what you're talking about.
Yeah.
You as the audience watching it are obviously like, I don't trust this motherfucker. I don't care how genuine that looks. But that's what it looks like, is this genuine kind of like desire to, like, it's this moment of like, maybe I could do this. Maybe I could be a father. But you know, we were talking about all the sexual tension between Mad Mardigan and Sorsha. But what about all the sexual tension between Willow and Mad Mardigan? I mean, ultimately, I think it's hard to deny the fact that these are two men, despite the fact that there is an evil matriarch killing and genociding and enslaving people across the world. It's still got this very patriarchal kind of organization and attitude. So it's so interesting for me to see these two men very normally, very kind of casually raising a child together in those circumstances. And immediately leads me to like kind of a queer reading of this this kind of like these two characters that, whether or not it's acknowledged or ever acted on, definitely have like, there is a reading in there, not necessarily the reading of it, but definitely a reading there where these two are unrequited lovers or whatever.
Really? I never gathered that. I could see maybe forms of admiration, you know, like, I mean, who wouldn't admire Willow? Everything about him is admirable, you know? And
Certainly.
Yeah, I never got that sense. But that doesn't mean anything.
But yeah, Willow, of course, kind of has this similar, like, these two men who care very much for each other. One is kind of more dominant, even though socially that wouldn't necessarily be the role. Willow kind of having this this chastising, fatherly kind of banter with Mad Mardigan at times feels very much like he's just kind of like...
Yeah, he's almost like the protector in this situation. Like, he's the one...
Right, and the social dynamics of this world would have made that pretty complicated.
That's kind of where I was going with it, is that that's the sentiment that I was getting, is more of like, you're clearly misguided in life, sir. Back on track, you know. As
True.
a father of two.
Yeah.
Very true. I think it's really beautiful how it ties into the in-story written romance for Mad Mardigan with Sorsha.
Yeah.
Where Sorsha never got touched with Dust of Broken Heart. All of her feelings were genuine.
Right.
Yeah.
Mad Mardigan,
On the
you
other
know,
hand.
is an idiot.
He hates Sorsha.
I love you, Sorsha. I don't love her. She kicked me in the face. I hate her.
I wouldn't say Mad Mardigan's the type to fall in love with anyone. And I don't think, I mean, obviously, it's not necessarily love at first kiss, even for Mad Mardigan and Sorsha. It is for Sorsha, but Mad Mardigan obviously takes a moment to like go, well, I didn't say any of that stuff intentionally, but do I actually feel that way?
Did I feel that way? Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, I like that it keeps Sorsha's agency. I mean, a lot of the movies of the time are not necessarily that progressive. I would say it's a little ahead of its time. Not a lot, but a little.
Yeah, for sure.
We go from one location to another in kind of this whirlwind of activity. They're running away from Sorsha and the rest of the Nockmaar soldiers, and we end up rolling down a hill like Daffy Duck with Mad Mardigan.
In the big snowball.
In a big old snowball.
No roll, I should say.
Yeah, it's like
more
a
like
cylinder.
Yeah.
Yes. Adam actually explained to us that growing up around snow, see, I didn't, so I wouldn't know, But Adam explained to us that actually can happen. Snow will roll in a cylinder,
Yeah.
and I was surprised. I didn't know.
Absolutely will. It's actually harder to get it into the
A
ball shape.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's way easier to just make it.
So
Yeah.
kids,
A tire.
don't always listen to us on the television because
and luckily they snowball right into a village that the Galadorn soldiers are hiding in.
Yeah,
Go
figure.
It's like they planned that.
I think that scene is marvelous as well. Just getting that tension between Eric and Madmartigan out in the open, and kind of like understanding where it comes from, or like better understanding who they are as well. It's kind of in a lot of ways the peak of Madmartigan's like story arc, his character arc. It's a huge change from here on out in how Madmartigan not just talks to Willow, how he talks to Sorsha, how he talks to every other character in the movie. His dynamic has been changed.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just a really powerful sentiment, and that it's kind of like Eric buys it. Eric isn't like, he notices that Madmartigan wouldn't just say that kind of shit.
Hello? Hello?
Why did nobody tell Willow this whole time that Tirasleen was fucked?
Yeah, and how
What
did
a bunch of assholes?
Yeah, how did what's her name, the fairy queen?
Oh, Sherlindria.
Yeah, how did she not know? First of all, like it seems like, and then later on when Finn Rizal is finally turned back into a human form, it's like it just solidifies that they have the least updated information on the situation. Like the good side here is just so uninformed on what's actually going on here.
Well, Finn Rizal, I can understand because she was actually like, she battled Bavmorda, and then she stuck her on that island.
Yeah.
But then after that, that's when Bavmorda actually did all that shit in Tirasleen. But yeah, everybody else, where are you getting your news at?
Madmartigan would have known. Eric would have known.
Yeah.
The Brownies would have known. Everybody would have known.
Come on.
Everybody would have known. Willow, that place is fucked, bro. Don't go there. There's trolls.
There's that moment where Madmartigan or Willow says to Eric or Madmartigan or something,
Eric,
that we're gonna go to Tirasleen. There's gonna be a bigger army there. Eric doesn't say shit. He's like, all right, we'll go follow you. Okay.
Eric's response is something along the lines of, "You'll never make it to Tirasleen," or something like that.
Yeah.
Like, he doesn't tell them it's absolute banger, you shouldn't go. But he also kind of just like brushes right past doing that.
Yeah.
I mean, is there any chance that there's like this idea of like treason, like, you know, just being forthright with the information you're going against the regime or the government or whatever it may be?
Possibly, yeah.
I don't know.
Sure. I mean,
like a level of fear of being like, yeah, no, it's really bad.
For Eric, he's already involved with like war with Nockmaar. Like, that's his entire thing. Madmartigan, I think he might just not, think of it because he's so stressed, tense. Everything's going on in Eric's world. He's having a hard time focusing on the little details, like Tirasleen is crystallized.
Yeah.
Madmartigan is a criminal. He is. What can you do to Madmartigan that hasn't already happened to him?
Mm-hmm.
The thing is like, it's possible narratively for them not to know, but it's not likely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think a lot of it could be explained like, well, Sherlindria was like Bavmorda's magic was making it so she couldn't see past a certain level of perception or whatever. And also the not being able, Sherlindria definitely didn't know that Finn Rizal had been turned into a
bush-tail possum.
An animal. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. She assumed that Fin Raziel was still a human sorcerer.
I always feel like with these higher powers, they know everything, but they have to pretend like they don't. So you can go on your courageous journey of growing as a sorcerer or a wizard, or just like you have to do this to get to the. That's where, I don't know.
No, you're right. You're absolutely right. And ultimately, that's what it is.
I think sometimes that's like in fantasy things that can be explained away by these like forces of nature. They're existing in a different, just like on a different plane. So time doesn't necessarily make the same sense. It's not linear in the same sense. So if time's passed, if that much time has passed, she's like, I don't know, whatever, like it's a big deal to them in the same way it would be to like the people who live through time. So maybe that's a way to like explain why she just doesn't seem to think it's important to tell them
let them know
you're gonna go do this, but it's not gonna matter because it's gonna matter.
Yeah.
I think the idea that's never expressly stated is that Fin Raziel needs to be a human sorcerer in Tirazleen so she can cast the spell that decrystallizes all the people and gives Willow the army that he would need, yada yada.
Right.
Yeah.
But Willow couldn't get the incantation down yet.
Yeah. He turned her into a goat instead.
And she very harshly calls him an idiot.
Yeah.
Great.
Kind of deserved it.
Although a goat is definitely better for fighting than a crow.
Yeah. Crows are scouts. Goats are fighters.
Yeah.
But I mean, we're entering the climax at this point. Willow and Madmartigan kind of just by themselves with the brownies as well. Kind of hold down Tirazleen for a minute until they're overwhelmed, and eventually the Nockmaar soldiers the Galadorn soldiers come to help out. But it's looking pretty bleak. However, Madmartigan kind of like Home Alones the entirety of Tirazleen and sets them all up. I really love this sequence. Is there anything that stood out for you guys here?
I remember the one thing that I've always remembered. I think Willow uses the wand maybe and like does something to one of the trolls on the bridge.
Oh yeah.
Those like tentacles come out and like rip its skin off, and then he's like, "Oh God, what the fuck is that?" And like that whole. It's like it just looks like it's all gross and stuff. And I was always like just like I don't know, repulsed by it as a kid. And it's just as gross as an adult. It's disgusting.
Yeah.
Madmartigan and Willow are kind of defeated at the end of this, where Elora Danan is taken, and there's this really beautiful scene between Madmartigan and Willow, where Madmartigan, right after defending Willow, asks Willow at his most weakened state, where he feels like an absolute failure. He just asks, "Can you ride?"
Look at that.
And when he asks that, he's not just asking, "Can you ride?" He's asking Willow, like, "Can you continue? Like, ultimately, we can take this from here, dude. You've done enough, and you shouldn't consider this a failure. We've got your back." And but Willow is steadfast, and regardless of how bad he's hurting, he wants to continue, And our next big set piece is out front of the castle of the castle of Nockmaar. Willow and Madmartigan and Fin Raziel meet up with the rest of the Knights of Galadorn. Willow changes Fin Raziel back to a human, and one of my favorite sequences happens right around the same period, where Bavmorda turns the entire army of Galadorn's knights into pigs.
Yeah.
It's still just such a brutal looking scene. Those transformations are,
oh yeah.
They're disgusting.
Yeah, it's so grotesque.
Yeah. When I saw Val Kilmer with the pig face for the first time, I was like, nowadays it's all done digitally, but to know that was done, that was all makeup, or at least I'm assuming it was all prosthetics. I was blown away. I was just like, wow, it's just being able to compare it, like, from before and now. It's just, it was way ahead of the time, in my opinion.
And it's even that's even like, that's the origin of what there is now. Like they took it to basically as far as it could go, practically.
It feels like, everything's falling down around our ears, it's like biggest stakes, they get to this big castle, it's imposing, it's frightening, Bad Morta's terrifying, all of her weird hooded guys look like evil mages, and of course Kale standing right there the whole time. I really love that next sequence, because it's literally something that I've said it multiple times on the program, but that scene means a lot to me. Not that one specifically, but the one following it, where it's just Finn Rizal and Willow standing there, like basically defenseless, facing Bad Morta's great castle. It's a really powerful thing, how far Willow has come at this point in the narrative.
Oh yeah, I mean, having to go through all of that for that now moment of courage. It's just like, all you had to do is pick the right finger, buddy.
And he's like slowly picking the finger.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But imagine if he chose the right finger to begin with.
Yeah.
We wouldn't have this movie or this podcast.
Yeah, we wouldn't have a character arc. He would have just been getting shit done the whole time.
I know.
Yeah.
Picking the right finger would have been the easy way out, right? But you lose all of the valuable lessons with taking that path. So yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And then it makes everything that you've gone through and the reward at the end that much more valuable.
It's about the journey, not the destination.
Yep.
I mean, sometimes. Unless
you're running to the back. Unless you're running.
Depends on where you're going.
We have a couple more short scenes. Of course, all action, all just pushing towards this big conclusion, this big fight between Finn Rizal and Bad Morta that we've essentially been building up this whole time. If you were Willow, would you be confident at that moment that they could take care of this and you could just go the fuck home? Like, Finn Rizal gives him an out.
Yeah. Willow's a completist, though.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. He's got 100% the run through.
Yeah, and he's such a team player too. He's like, no way am I going to give up on you guys. Are you kidding? We're in this together.
Yeah, he learned a lesson earlier on when he tried to let the situation play itself out without taking a hand in it. When he gave Alora up, and then it didn't work out very well. So I feel like there's no chance. There's no chance he's not gonna like fully see this through.
Right. With Alora in there.
Him if he gave up. You know what I mean? It's not necessarily it wouldn't at that point, I don't think it would be him giving up per se. It's just more of maybe recognizing that you can only go so far, which there's nothing wrong with that. But I just don't see him abandoning, the people that he's gone through this with.
He's seen people die, maybe for the first time in his life, of people dying not of natural causes,
Yeah. Is this his first warrior experience or like soldier experience?
Yeah. As far as we're ever led to be aware, Willow's been a farmer his whole life. He's just a simple troll.
Yeah.
Sorsha's got a very similar kind of reversed motivation, where she's going to go confront her mother maybe for the first time in her life. Finn Rizal going to confront her old nemesis.
Sorsha's the daughter that Finn Rizal never had.
And also a princess. Sorsha is ultimately the rightful heir of Tirazleen.
One thing I never got from that character was the need to, like, granted, she was trying to capture the baby to make her mom happy, but I don't think it was necessarily like a need to please. I never got that from that character, which typically you would in that kind of relationship. And it never came through for me. And I'm just like, why are you doing what you're doing? I mean, ultimately she didn't. So, but that was one thing that I was missing from that character was like, what do you think your purpose is?
Yeah. What's her motivation for going after the kid and all that stuff?
Yeah.
That's a really interesting point. Like, she doesn't necessarily play like trying to serve mommy, you know?
Exactly.
She feels very in control, right?
Yeah.
I think the thing is in the tent scene, you get an idea that a lot of this anger, a lot of this violence, and kind of like ability to instill fear in other people, intimidation. I think is a lot of it a facade that she puts on or has put on for a long time to survive.
Yeah, I mean, environmental influence, and yeah, that makes sense. That makes a ton of sense.
Yeah, Bad Mother can't be the warmest. Couldn't have been the warmest of mothers.
Yeah, there's definitely a pattern of abuse that went on in her life growing up,
or neglect.
Her lore is easily the darkest in the world. For me, that's the point I wish had played out a little harder. Maybe we get like a moment where she feels like so defeated, from that almost immediate L that she gets served by Bab Morda, but is saved by Fin Raziel, who ultimately fails as well. Her duel with Bab Morda is epic and crazy, and goddamn, just another chance to say Jean Marsh and Patricia Hayes are some of the greatest to ever do it. Like, that duel is so much like. Can you imagine performing that?
No.
Up on
just
wires and doing all that.
Just
shit.
like pointing a stick at people and then like having to say some nonsense words and having to take it 100% serious.
Yeah, and making it seem like it's actually consequential.
I would never have appreciated that as much without hearing what you just said, because it's so true. Because it's so believable, right? You're just like, oh yeah, no, this took no effort whatsoever, but it took all the effort.
Yeah,
absolute goat.
All the good people make it look easy, even though it's hard.
Bab Morda looks like she is going to conquer. She defeats Fin Raziel, who drops her wand on the ground and looks well defeated. Maybe not even living. And Willow recognizes in this moment it's his turn to step up and maybe die really quickly. But he's got to try. He's got to do something to save this baby that he loves.
Yeah.
And
huge to know, you're sacrificing your own family for, family that's not blood.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And the stakes are so high as well. Just him sacrificing himself in that moment, even if he's not successful, is just means he can't be there with his family when they die very shortly thereafter.
Yeah.
Yeah. When the world is coming to an end, and I know for me, I'm just like, I just want to be with those that I love, and to know that that could be happening and you're not there. I mean, so much is going into that. I wish I would have seen more
from him.
Yeah. Where's your emotion, buddy? Granted, the adrenaline, I'm sure.
Yeah. And Willow's,
he also ended up having to sell it.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Very true.
Yeah.
We get perhaps the silliest scene in the whole movie, but played for almost no laughs. It's only after exhausting every other option he had. He picks up Fin Raziel's wand, he throws the acorn, and realizes he doesn't know how to do anything with this wand really that's going to help him in this situation.
Yeah.
Right.
So he's going to bluff. He's going to insult her, get her really pissed off.
Yeah.
And hopefully she'll make the mistake that she needs to make.
Yeah.
So it's an interesting climax, and we see Babmorda defeated essentially by the ruination of her ritual spell. The final couple of scenes in this film are Madmartigan and Sorsha standing with Fin Raziel and an old guy who, if you look really closely in Tir Asleen, you will see it's the king of Tir Asleen. It's a essentially a going away party for Willow. Fin Raziel gives him a big book of spells, and finally returns back to the Nelwyn village, sees his family, and has a bird shit on Burgle Cut.
A bird of his own conjuring, I believe, right?
Yeah.
Yes, indeed.
Yep.
So this is my favorite movie, and I'm so glad that y'all took the time to watch it again. Do you have like as far as your impressions on the story as a whole, what do you think it was trying to say?
I mean, I think we touched on it a lot as far as like, obviously there's the courage aspect of it. There's the idea of community and fighting for your people. And I mean, if you take a look at the story and compare it to what's happening today, it's kind of just like, if we could all be that courageous, but also all be on the same side to fight against the evil, like how much we could have done together,
Define what part of the puzzle, social restructuring you fit into,
Exactly.
Like I've found myself firmly planted in the art / propagandist, part of that resistance structure. But it's something that I can offer, I can provide. There are so many things that situationally I'm not capable of necessarily doing. Not that. Yeah.
I mean,
this is
we could all
absolutely
do sorcery.
yeah. If only we could all do sorcery. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. One thing that we didn't touch on was the score of the movie.
I'm glad you brought it up.
The entire time I thought it was John Williams, and it's not.
Yeah.
And I looked. I think it's James Horner. R.I.P. But he also had done a score for, I think it was Star Trek 3. So like I was getting Indiana Jones vibes when I was listening to some of the music. And so I was just like, oh my gosh, is this John Williams? Nope. It's not.
And I think it was intentional. Like it has that John Williams feel, not just in the whole rest of it, but I think especially in that Nelwyn Village thing, it has a lot of the same sort of feel and themes as in Return of the Jedi and the Ewok Village, where they're doing their celebrations and things like that. So like they, Horner did his research and created something that had that feel and that scope, and it really conveys the emotion of every scene. I think.
Definitely and composition of its time for sure.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, the music for Willow is definitely one of its strongest things that draws you into it. James Horner's score is incredible, and really sells the epicness, the fantasy aspect of the story. Elora Danon's theme, the very breathy kind of, kind of like stuff we get a lot of in Sherlindria's Grove and places like that. It's all very ethereal, and then the big driving like theme of the score is like the very bombastic da 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 da. But it sells you into the theme that we're getting into the story, and it's really interesting because like between Lucasfilm and Amblin in that period of time, if you weren't using Lucas, you were using Horner. It was definitely one or the other so often. I guess Alex, now that you have rewatched it after not watching it for so much time, was there
Yeah.
any like theme or like what something that meant something to you more now than it would have when you were younger and watching it?
What? Are you hinting at something?
Oh, did you watch it?
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Just kidding.
So as far, I'm trying to think if there's anything really that stuck out differently. I guess I don't know. It's probably there's. I mean, now obviously there's a sense of nostalgia to it, but just because, it just kind of takes you back to when you were watching it as a kid, consistently watching it. So it's all those little things, and then also like I had mentioned, like the couple little things, like where he's like, out of the way, Peck, and all these, and here, and just like
stole our black root.
Yeah, he took our black root. Yeah, all that sort of stuff. That just like it's just I don't know. It's just kind of it's like wrapping it around you like a warm blanket. It's just kind of nice.
I definitely get the idea of it being very comforting. Like it's something that I go to a lot of the time if it's like, I've had a rough day or, I need something that will perk me up and make me believe that there are good things in the world that are possible and things like that. That's the movie,
Yeah.
I just want to get any closing thoughts you might have, unless those were them.
I will say that I probably would have never watched this had I not been invited to. So I appreciate the opportunity, and I also appreciate you guys being so open to my feedback, given how unsubstantial it is.
Not at all. Not at all.
I think you're selling yourself short.
It's just new. It's just new.
It's so new. There's
Yeah.
so much of the movie that I think that just completely went over my head, and I do thoroughly appreciate the thoughts and sentiments that you have towards the movie. It's definitely I will be looking at it through a different lens the next time I watch it, if I watch it again. Yeah,
that means a lot, honestly.
As a kind of follow-up question to that, does it pique your interest enough to make you curious to see the TV series?
I mean, I live with this guy, so
it will be watched for sure.
Yeah, it will be watched for sure, and obviously having the background context is going to be super helpful for me.
Yeah,
that's cool.
I just watched Indiana Jones recently, if that puts anything into perspective for
the very first time.
For the very first time. Yeah. So
nice.
A lot of firsts with this guy. So thank you.
Yeah.
I love it. I love it. Well, yeah, thank you both for being our guest today. We might ask you back in a couple of months after we have some of the new episodes coming out and see what you think about the new series.
Sure.
Yes.
That'd be great.
Cool.
For sure. And I'll pay better attention with this more thoughtful lens when we're watching the series.
You were very thoughtful as you were. So whatever is going to help you enjoy your time spent in Motherworld. That's all that matters.
Yeah.
Thank you. This was a blast.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Yeah. I am Weston Lee Ball. This has been Ignore the Bird, Follow the River. I'm an actor, artist, musician. You can find me here on Tuesdays at Twitch on Tuesdays, twitch.tv/nerdcraftlv, at 3:30 for Live with Lava Sub, my art stream. You can find us every other Sunday for Iron Hearts. And keep watching Nerdcrafty. We've got all kinds of stuff coming out, especially our t-shirts. We have more designs.
Yay.
We have more designs available as well, but this is our newest one, and it's our Ignore the Bird shirt, and we're so glad to be bringing it to you.
And it's limited edition, so get it while you can.
Get it while you yeah.
Yeah.
Get it while it's hot. I got it.
Also, I'm Adam. I am one of the content creators here on the Nerdcrafty website. I do all sorts of stuff. I've done all sorts of stuff in the past. If you have any questions about it, contact me on Nerdcrafty, and I can tell you about it, and you can hire me.
To do stuff.
Fucking
To
solid.
do stuff.
I'm Kristina. I'm not as cool as these guys. But yeah, if you want to follow me on Instagram, I'm KO Chicago.
And I'm Alex Stooky as fuck.
Yeah.
Instagram handle, Alex Stooky AF.
Well, thank you, everyone. Thank you both. And thanks, everyone, for listening. Thank you, Sam in the booth and Adam.
Until next time, thank you to our guests. And thank you for listening, Brownies and Bobkins. And this has been Ignore the Bird, Follow the River.
This has been a Nerdcrafty podcast.